Hi everyone, welcome to the self-knowledge lectures. As every Sunday we have our FaithB lectures, and today we have the lecture number 20 of FaithB, and we are going to be studying this very interesting and important topic. We are going to be talking today about intuition. And well, as I always say, if you have any question, remember you can leave your questions down there and I will be gladly solving any question that you have. Or you can feel free to contact me through the messenger of the page in case you have any question in relation to any of the topics that we bring in this self-knowledge course or in relation to the course. Allow me just a second to check if everything is okay with the video. Just a moment. Let me fix something here. Just allow me a second. Okay, I think now it's better. Wait, and well, let's immediately start with the explanation of today's topic. And well, in this lecture that we have today, we are going to learn how to develop this faculty, as intuition is one of those senses of our soul, is one of the faculties that are latent in each one of us. And this one is the one that will allow us to receive and to understand the wisdom and the guidance that our inner being, that our consciousness is constantly giving us. So this faculty of the intuition is something that is very important in the development of our consciousness and in our path towards self-knowledge. Okay, so let's start by explaining what is intuition. Intuition actually is the means of expression of consciousness. So intuition is like the ability of knowing but without thinking. Since when we learn to silence our mind, we can get to know everything. Because when we get to silence that constant talk in our mind, that as we studied in the say lectures, in the lecture of the mental chatter and the psychological sun, that constant chatter that we have inside ourselves comes from our psychological defects. So each one of our different ways of being are there all the time saying something, emitting their opinion in our mind. And when we learn to silence our mind, to eliminate all of those defects, to remain in this inner silence, we can connect directly with this center where that is the seat of our wisdom, the wisdom of our consciousness, which is the superior intellectual center there at the level of the pineal gland. And that wisdom will come and manifest in our heart as intuition. Okay, so intuition comes to our heart but as a certainty. Here we have at this level the fourth chakra, and here we also have the lower intellectual center. Here we have the superior intellectual center. So our mind is here. Actually, our brain is like the hardware, but the software of our mind is in this center, in the lower intellectual center. So when we manage to silence and to listen to our consciousness, we receive that intuition there in our hearts as a certainty about something that we simply just know. And many times we even receive as intuition many warnings regarding some, for example, danger that is about to happen to us. And if we follow the intuition of our heart, then we can get out of many complicated situations. Okay, but the important thing is that when intuition arrives, we need to learn not to reason, not to start thinking about it, but immediately act. If we let the doubt, the reasoning, or the justifications enter our mind, like disturb this instant clarity that we have, then we end up losing that certainty. We lose that clarity that we had, and we fall into confusion, the confusion of the ego, and we make mistakes. So it is important to know that intuition cannot do any harm, since actually intuition is the only faculty that cannot be taken over by the ego. The thing is that we need to learn to recognize intuition, because we are so used to listen to our own ego. We are so used, and we tend to confuse intuition with hunch, with the feeling or the presentiment. We are going to talk now what are the difference of that. As we start developing intuition, and we are going to learn today how we're going to do so, we are going to start differentiating intuition from when our ego is talking. And when we start recognizing intuition, we need to act, to do what that intuition tells us, or immediately understand what we are receiving intuitively, without doubting, without letting the ego asking yeah or not, but what if I'm confused? No, don't let your ego start there confusing you. So, as I was saying, we have many faculties, Latin, within each one of us. Actually, each one of our chakras, of our 7 chakras, can develop a different faculty, which are the faculties of our soul. But it happens that the intuition is the only faculty that cannot be taken by the ego. It's the only faculty that we can seek to develop from the beginning of our inner work, because the other faculties, for example, the clairvoyance, the clairaudience, the telepathy, etc., they are faculties that if we start developing those faculties in our current egoic state, they will be managed by our psychological defects, and that can lead us to make serious mistakes. So, for example, we have our defects of lust, right? So alive in ourselves. Imagine that you have the clairvoyance with those defects of lust. Lust is going to use the clairvoyance to make their things. Or if we, with our defects of greed and developing those faculties, actually that is the way in which a black magician is actually created, because a black magician, through their black magic practices, they can develop many faculties, but as they are not eliminating their psychological defects, actually is the ego the one that is using those faculties. But the intuition can not be used by the ego, because intuition is actually communicating ourselves with our consciousness, and the ego doesn't want at all to communicate with consciousness. Yeah, ego wants to do the will, and a black magician doesn't want or go or can communicate with their consciousness, because they took like the other path, right? And that is the reason why it is important to understand that as we are advancing in this inner work, as we are working in the elimination of our psychological defects, in the creation of the existential bodies of the being, and we are opening the wisdom, the churches of wisdom inside of us, then our inner being, as we are advancing in our work in the awakening of consciousness, is the one that is going to give us these faculties, as he considers that is the time that we are already capable of handling those faculties. But being intuition, not only harmless, since it cannot be taken by the ego, but also very useful to receive and understand the wisdom of our being, it is very important that we start developing and practicing to develop these faculties, and in today's lecture we are going to learn how. Now let's see what is intuition for. As you can see, intuition brings us benefits or help us both in a physical world and in the internal world. On this plane, in the physical plane, it will be of great help to us when we, for example, have to make a decision. Usually we are faced with a problem or a dilemma, and what we do is that we give the chance to our minds, and we think and we think and we think and we contrast and we try to make a correct decision based on the concepts of our mind. If in those moments we do the opposite to what we commonly do, that's thinking and overthinking, but we silence our mind, applying, of course, the psychological depth, we can intuitively feel in our hearts what we should do, because our consciousness will manifest in us, okay? And as I told you, it helps us to get rid of dangers all the time. So when we are going to take a path and we just feel that in our hearts, make us feel that we shouldn't take that path, there is intuition alerting us. You need to differentiate it from fear. It is not that you are going there and you start feeling fear because it's dark, for example. You say, no, I intuitively feel that I mustn't go there. No, it's not that. Actually, that is what I'm saying. You need to start developing intuition, so you start recognizing intuition, so you know what is intuition about. Here I am explaining you certain concepts in relation to intuition, but actually you are going to start recognizing intuition when you start developing this, okay? And well, through intuition also we can locate ourselves when we are, for example, in an unknown place in this physical world, but also in the astral world. Guided by intuition, we can find some place that we are, for example, looking for. It also helps us a lot in the sacrifice for humanity, since many times we are teaching and right there we are receiving directly from our inner being, like in this intuitive way, an answer or an information in relation to the topic that we are given, or in relation to the question that someone asks us, and they ask us something and we don't really know, but when we silence our mind and we listen to that intuitively, our being let us know what is the answer for that question. Also, through intuition, we can understand the symbolism in many sacred texts that we have in this physical world, and understand what is what is written between lines there. We can intuitively understand the deep meaning of those sacred texts that are actually they are written in an astral language, in astral symbolism. So it is important that we develop intuition so we get to really know what the sacred texts are actually teaching, okay? And well, we can also understand many phenomena of the physical world with clarity, with intuition. And in the internal worlds, it will also be of great help to develop intuition, since intuition allows us to, for example, interpret the symbolic language that is used in the astral world, So you see that in dreams and the conscious astral projections, you're going to receive information, but always in a symbolic way. So you are going, for example, we gave you this guide for the interpretation of the astral experiences, which is of a great help. If you don't have it, you can write me and I will gladly send it to you. And there we are like learning to understand what is the symbol, what this symbol can be related to. When I see a lion, when I see a dog, when I see such a person, when I see such a place or something in the sky or whatever. There are a lot of symbols there, but it's actually the intuition, the one that will allow you to like relate one symbol with the other and understand them in relation to your own psychology. So that is developing intuition is very, very important. We will be able to interpret very clearly, and even right there, even right in the conscious astral projection, you are going to be like, you see the symbol and immediately, intuitively, you know what they are talking to you about. And well, also the intuition is very helpful in the reflective meditation because it allows us to understand the relation between our psychological defects. We can understand our defects like in greater depth, and that will allow us to understand why we act as we act, why we did what we did. We are going to be, it is very helpful actually in the reflective meditation when you are working on your own psychology. Through intuition, we can also realize when recurrences are about to happen to us, so we can transcend them. So if we become intuitive, how I say intuitive, if we become what is the word? Sorry, I know in Spanish, but in English I don't know how to say. When we become intuitive, I don't know. Whatever. When we become persons with intuition, sorry, we are like able to know right away what is going on, why is this about to happen, what this situation is coming to teach me. So we can transcend many recurrences by working on the psychological depth. And well, these are just some of the benefits of developing intuition. It really helps us for many things, to have that constant access to the wisdom of our consciousness. Actually, that is very helpful. Now, it is important to differentiate between what is the intuition of a hunch or a presentiment or a feeling, or the hunch is like an instinctive call, and it's more developed in people who have like greater contact with nature and that feel like instinctively. For example, people know when there will be like bad weather or good weather, or when a person is going to get sick, or when an animal is going to get sick, etc. They like can instinctively feel things around them. That is like a hunch. Okay, while the presentiment or the feeling is that it's like that feeling that we have that already that we already experienced something before, and that we feel like if that can happen again, but it's not as certain. I mean, it's when you feel something and you feel like fear that that is about to happen, or that you knew, yeah, I knew that that was about to happen, but it's not a certainty. Actually, there is like doubt, there is anguish, is concern, is uncertainty, and in that feeling is all of that. So that is not intuition, because intuition is something that you already know. It's something like very clear. In intuition, there is no doubt, at least that you let the mind enter and make a mess of the intuition. Then you're going to start doubting. But in the moment in which you receive that intuitive call, you already know. You don't feel that concern. You don't feel the doubts. You don't feel the anguish. You just know it. Okay, so that is like the difference. So now let's see like the most important part of this lecture: how to develop intuition. Actually, intuition, as any other of the faculties that we are going to develop, is going to develop through the practice of the 3 factors for the consciousness revolution. Because as we eliminate our psychological defects, we are going to learn to silence our minds. We are going to calm down our ego. We are going to be rescuing consciousness, right? And that is going to help us a lot to develop intuition. As we are burning spiritually, as we are practicing the supersexuality, and we are filling ourselves with our energy, and we are creating our internal bodies. So we are doing a wise use of our energy. We are also developing these faculties, and as we sacrifice for humanity, helping others, we receive like the merits of the heart, so we can make this inner work faster. So actually all faculties are going to be developed with the practice of the 3 factors for the consciousness revolution, and more the intuition, as the more you know yourself, the more you can get in contact with your unconsciousness, with your inner being. Now, there is a practice that we can make from now on to activate like faster our ability or our faculty of intuition, and is neutralizing the vowel O with the sound O, like O, elongated. Okay. It is recommended to do it daily, and while we vocalize the O, as we neutralize this sound, we can imagine we need to concentrate on our heart, on the 4th chakra, which is the heart chakra, that is like a disc with 12 petals. Here you can have like an idea of what that chakra looks like. So you can imagine this heart chakra. You can imagine it green or of different colors. But the important thing is to imagine this like there in front of you, turning around, like in a clockwise direction. For example, you imagine like this, like if it is in front of you, and you can see it there, because our chakras are not inside of us. They are actually outside of our body, because they are like this, that are there all the time, capturing energy from the macrocosm. And so we need to imagine, just as you can see here in front of you, and you imagine that is turning in a clockwise direction, in the direction in which the hands of the clock turns. Okay. And you are going to do so. You concentrate in your heart. You can do this for around 20 minutes daily. And you're going to focus on your heart. You concentrate there. You imagine this chakra turning there. And you are just those 20 minutes, mentalizing the O, like O, elongated as long as you can. Then you inhale again, and O. You're going to start feeling like how this like vibrates when you mentalize the O. And well, it as I was saying, 20 minutes daily, continuously. This practice is very useful if you want to start experiencing what intuition is, and you want to start to be guided through intuition. I highly recommend you to work on the 3 factors for the conscious revolution, of course, but also doing this practice daily. 20 minutes, mentalizing the O, the sound O, elongated, concentrating in your heart in this fourth chakra, imagining this chakra turning in a clockwise direction in front of you, and that's it. This simple practice is very helpful to develop intuition, and the important thing here is to practice it, since this knowledge only as a theory doesn't work at all. We need to put it into practice so that it can become wisdom in us, okay? And well, people, this has been today's lecture. This is the information about intuition. And well, if you have any question, remember to contact me or leave your questions down there, and I will be gladly solving any question that you have. And I want to invite you to our next lecture that we are going to be studying next, the Facebook lectures next Sunday, in which we are going to be talking about the intimate Christ and the death of the causal selves. In that very interesting lecture, we are going to be understanding, but in depth, more about that fire force that we must develop in ourselves, and the importance of eliminating with this force, this Christic force, which is the fire of the fire, the seeds of our ego, in order to free ourselves totally from this wheel of samsara. Okay, so see you next Sunday. Thank you very much to all of you who watch these lectures, and well, a lot of strength, and see you the next time. Ciao, ciao.